Eastern Time. It's LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. I am so honored and so pleased to have David Alto with us today. I encourage everybody to chat because that's what gives us direction, makes whatever we can bring today more relevant to you and in the moment. And, we don't have a script, so wherever the audience wants to take us, that's where we're going to be. With that said, the word of the day is influence. If you care to, uh, get your mind around it, and we'd love to hear what influence means to you, what your definition is. But, as a starting point, and before the comments start flying in, let me turn it over to David. David could tell you a little bit of context so you know who David is and possibly what his initial thoughts on influence is. David?
Well, hey, first of all, thank you for inviting me, on the show, and looking forward to that engagement. So yes, people, make sure to put your comments, your questions, whatever during our live today. Um, in a nutshell, I help job seekers, whether that's resumes and cover letters, coaching, interview coaching, or learning how to better put that profile together. And then what do you do with that LinkedIn profile? You can't just it's not a billboard that's it can attract recruiters, but you got to learn how to leverage LinkedIn. So anything and everything related to job seekers, I kind of got that. I got that covered. So that's a little bit about at least what I do and why I'm on LinkedIn. I really enjoy at the end of the day helping job seekers. Influence. I've been saying this for a long time that everybody, whether on LinkedIn or just anywhere in life, can influence others, and hopefully you do. And regardless of what your role is, whether you're a manager, a leader of teams, or maybe you just have just a bunch of peers, we all have the ability every day to influence others. I think when we see influence, we think of influencers, right? Well, again, I do think, what do influencers do, right? Those people that have millions of followers and whatever they do really influence industries, products that they promote. But influence really, and if you embrace that as a good word, influence really empowers you to help others. What are you doing? And if you're a leader of teams, or whatever you're doing, a coach or whatever, hopefully I would hope that you are influencing your teams to get what they need done in a positive, reinforcing way.
Hey, that's a great start, David. Gives me so many thoughts and um, ways of looking at influence. My initial thought on influence is having an impact, right? Affecting something, right? If you push something, you've influenced it. If you turn something, you've influenced whatever it was. And your life is all about how do you influence your next change, right? How do you break through areas that maybe have been holding you back? And what influence do you have through others, right? A lot of people's influence is their influencers,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, hey, if I get into a jam with my plumbing, I know an expert, right? Who's a plumbing influencer. So a lot of people look at influencers as elite, separate, but most of them are the ones who have the most impact on you and with you. If you look back at family, how many uncles or grandparents or parents influenced you, in ways they never even thought of? And that's the cool thing about influence. But before we get too far, the show is all about our audience. So MA's here, have never seen you before. Thank you for coming. Natalie's, who's just unbelievable, Beer Wednesday, and is here every week. And is such a wonderful artist, but also even a better person. So if you have an opportunity, check out Natalie's profile. If there's alignment, use this opportunity to network, to get to meet people who are same minded. And we're all here in the moment at the same time. and whatever we want to create is in front of us. That's one of the few things about reality is in the moment is the real. Sheaf is here from Canada. Thanks to Sheaf here every day with wonderful quotes. Suba, haven't seen you before. Have a lot of questions regarding jobs. That's cool. Aharon is here. Nice to have you. So, with the start of all these comments and with our initial thoughts on influence, how do you see yourself influencing others?
Sure. Well, we'll take a step back. In my previous job, I was a multi-unit district manager in the retail world for a long time. Had 10 or 12 different locations I had to travel to. And one of my previous bosses told me is after I leave a visit of that store, did I leave a footprint, in that store when I left? Meaning, did I influence, did I impact the time I was there? Or did I just hinder them, doing busy stuff because, oh my God, the boss is here, we got to act a certain way or do something. No. So when I stepped into that store, I was very mindful of their time and their processes. I didn't want them to, deviate from those, but what am I going to do to make the people that I interact with, those employees, what am I doing to make them better? And not necessarily it's always making their job better to get better, results. Sometimes it's sitting down with them and maybe they're not invested in 401k in the company and really walking them through like how that works. If you take 5% of your wages, you're really not leaving yourself with 5% less of a paycheck because of how it does pre-tax. But anyway, when you look at it, when you're influencing others, impacting others, it always doesn't have to be just about what you're doing currently. But again, because I've developed a bond with those people, even for a brief period of time, maybe just a few minutes or maybe an hour, when I left, I felt pretty darn good, chest all puffed up, head held high, getting in my car, traveling the next door, that I made an impact on their lives. Now, what do I do on LinkedIn? Well, I hope my posts, that some of them sometimes give people some advice and tips enough to take that and do something with it. Even if they don't, they're not clients of me, every day, if I can help one person, again, whether that's a paid client or just somebody that gets that advice and does great things with it, then I've impacted. So what I do still today now, because I don't get to see my clients other than maybe on a Zoom, but every day before I turn off my computer, did I impact any of the lives that I interacted with today, like I did when I did that in person, previous career? And that's what I have a little note on my computer every day. Did I leave a footprint? Did I leave an impact on anybody? And I think we all can. We're all subject matter experts about various things. And it doesn't always have to be about LinkedIn, boring business stuff. Again, if you made an impact, if you're a subject matter expert about finance, but you're not in financing, just share tips and advice, and that is a great way to leave an impact on just one person each and every day.
That's terrific, because it really generates that ripple effect, because not everybody you see is not only a connection, they're a doorway to their network.
Yes.
And, the influence you have is with and through people, not at people, and when you can be inclusive and you can meet people where they're at, that's where things can really happen. But also influence is connections. And, I know, David, you're in a rare area of having over 111,000 connections. And I know there's always that question, quantity, quality, all that stuff. Do you need a big overfed feed, with a bunch of irrelevant stuff? But,
Sure.
how did you get that many? And what do you do with that many?
Sure. So I got an account in LinkedIn account in 2012. but did nothing really with it until 2019. So from 2019 till now is when I built that those followers. Very slow at the beginning. Okay, so I get this all the time. Dave, I don't need to have 100,000 followers to be successful. And you're absolutely correct. Or I hear people say, I don't need viral content. And then I'll go time out for a minute. You might not need it, but if only my first degree connections are seeing my content, only my first degree, eventually they'll either be clients or they'll never be clients just because they don't need, again, right, need me. We need new second and third degree connections to just make connections, make friends, whatever you want to call it. But we need more unique people seeing our content. So the more engagement, the more views that we get, the more that people share our content, then we get that, second and third degree connection seeing my content. So I'm at the point now where, yes, I mean, on average, probably 20,000 views per post, but, at least every other week, a couple 100,000, views or whatnot. So what those do, again, is allow more second degree and third degree connections to see my content. But when I get a post that blows up, say, 800,000, I can't engage with everybody. So who do I engage with? Engage with the either the new first degree connections or those second and third, because my first will understand that maybe they're just here to support me. I'm support them. But you really want to spend that new time on those, again, either new first or second or third, to make them potential, clients or whatever you're doing on LinkedIn, or just because they gave a very thoughtful comment. And what I have found, it's those second and third degree connections, not all the time, but what I found is those are the ones that I mean, I got to click, I got to keep scrolling because they left a very long comment. And that's because, they're probably not on LinkedIn for hours. They found something that was thoughtful and worth engaging on. So they commented a very long comment. So that's where you really want to spend your time. But again, going viral, we might not need to, but we all need more new second and third degree connections. So I post content that is very thoughtful, but maybe that video or post or that photo, gets people to stop. Because can you imagine if we couldn't share video or photos? It would just look like text, right? It would just be text. And to be honest, I don't know, kind of boring. I mean, most people don't read all of the text on a post anyway. So sometimes we need those, photos or funny videos to kind of stop and get somebody's attention.
Well, that's a great answer. And I kind of mirrored the same type of story. I didn't get really active until 2020, and I went from 0 to 30 some thousand connections in about 5-6 months. And at a certain point, relevancy is so important. Relevancy of what you're doing, relevancy of what you're receiving. And what you mentioned reminded me of a strategy I developed, which is the inbound to outbound strategy. Where I go every day is who looked at my profile, right? Who commented, who reached out to connect, who in notifications tagged me. And by reaching back, you're already having someone that showed an interest, took some time to kind of wave at you to say, I'm alive and I'm here, no obligation. But by recognizing those people, you're being fresh in the day. Too many, there's a saying, it's easier to give birth than raise the dead. And too many people keep going back to what never came alive, thinking time will be the answer, right? Not knowing that 100 people like you have filled that time since you've talked to them. And so it's really about who's ready, who's willing and able to do something together. Because one thing about too many connections, if there's something, when I was initially on LinkedIn, I would do the slice and dice with Sales Navigator, send out a bunch of connection invites, have a pretty good conversion rate. But what I understood that wasn't there is how interested or active these people were.
Sure.
So then I went to where the first thing I look at if someone wants to connect, what's their activity? What kind of activity? Who are they surrounded by? And does that make sense to add it, and connect it? So I think there's strategy, and the deeper you go on LinkedIn, the more nuanced it gets. And I think if you can combine the knowledge of people, the knowledge of business, and the knowledge of LinkedIn together and understand best practices, really what's in it for them is always my motto. Just like this show, it's all about the audience, because without the audience, me and David be talking to ourselves and it wouldn't be a lot of fun. But before I turn it over to David, let me get some of these wonderful comments. Natalie says, one of my goals is to influence individuals to embrace more creative activities, to alleviate stress and overwhelm within their personal professional lives. And Natalie's just an outstanding artist. That's a wonderful intention, and I think LinkedIn could be a beautiful vehicle to help all of you get to where you're going. And I think one of the keys is knowing where you want to go. Yes. And then moving in that direction versus everything with everybody all the time. It dilutes you. Good morning. Linda's here. Linda always has some comments. Excited for our words, seeing how influence has been in all generations and some very different. Natalie comes back with, this community engagement, the host, guests, and the daily words influence me to be a better person and do better daily. And that's the beauty of shows like this, is being better together.
Yes.
I wouldn't be talking what I'm talking right now, and either would David, if we weren't doing what we're doing. So you influence us to influence you back. And I think that's where it all builds from, is how do you take this forward? Too many people have a hard time accepting something, let alone retaining it and then pushing the ball forward or passing the baton. So David, this is a pretty interesting, energetic crowd we've got today. Looks like you're all geared up. What's your thoughts now on influence and how you can bring it to bear?
Yeah, what I think is, okay, so my wife and I have been watching this show called The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix lately. Love the show. Well, my wife posted something on Instagram, and the actual main actor liked it. And she verified the page. Now, he didn't comment, but she's like, look, he liked it. So, here's what she said. That must be what sometimes your community, Dave, says to you when you comment on some engagement of theirs. And really, it gets you thinking that we do need to check ourselves once in a while. I mean, without the 115,000 followers I have, or just the 29,000 connections, I wouldn't be doing anything. So we need to recognize, when people leave a very thoughtful comment, because we do have some influence, but we can lose that influence. Just like if you're a leader of teams, I'll go back to my previous job. If I don't give no love and support to those employees when I go in there, right? I don't answer their questions. They give me some feedback. I don't listen to it. Well, they're not gonna follow me anymore. Well, it's the same thing here on LinkedIn. Be thoughtful. That person gave a very thoughtful, it took them some time to put those words together. Respect that. And well, they're going to respect you because they're going to follow you, but you might learn something from it too. And I always learn, something for those thoughtful comments. So know that, again, people's time is valuable, and they thought what you wrote was valuable. Take some pride in it, smile, and now go engage with people. And you're gonna feel just as warm as inside as they are when you respond to them. Just like Gary V a couple years ago, Gary Vaynerchuk liked one of my posts, and my post did pretty well. And he didn't comment, and it was really him, his LinkedIn profile. Now, whether that was him or somebody else, controlling his account, but I felt pretty good, right? Because he even liked it. So again, you got to remember, we can all influence others. Take the time to engage with that content of your audience, no matter how big or how small.
That is so valuable because everybody has certain tokens that they can bestow on anybody on LinkedIn every day. And that token may be a tag, it may be a like, it might be a comment, it might be a share. So, how many people do you want to expose yourself to as supporters? You know, one of my strategies again is being the best comment of the day for whoever you want to be the best comment of the day. And, you know, you can ring, you know, there's a bell on everybody's profile. You can hit it so you don't have to look for it or wait for your feed to show it. But let's say you decided for 2 weeks, I really want to have a call with this person. And instead of reaching out and say, let's have a call, here's my Zoom, you show up for 2 weeks on their feed. And for no other reason but to keep it going, they're going to have to thank you,
Yes.
show appreciation. And then 2 weeks into it says, hey, I just love your stuff and it's great supporting you. Can we have a Zoom? Right now you've got a relationship already. And it doesn't take much to see what the best comment is because it's like playing poker with everybody's hands open. You can see what was given. And in most cases, if you just show you read something or watched something just for a little bit and mentioned it to know it was genuine, you know, then that makes you top of mind awareness. So, you know, it's not throwing a hook in the water in the morning and coming back later at night to see if you caught something. It's really diving in, you know, getting the relationship going. You know, what's good for you is good for people like you. You know, what gets you excited gets other people excited, but no one's taking the initiative or being proactive. And, you know, I know one thing about LinkedIn, if you work it, it works.
Oh,
You
100%.
know? And if you don't work it, it doesn't work as well. It still can work if you got a tailwind. You know, even they say a broken clock tells the right time twice a day. So, you know, with that, you know, this has been kind of very fabulous in its own way because it's not only defining the word, but the application of the word and how we can use ourselves to influence more than we are, right? To get more inertia, you know, build momentum. You know, when I used to get all those connections, I was doing a lot of work. And, you know, another thing I decided I won't connect with somebody if I won't talk to somebody.
Sure.
Right. If I'm already limited from the get-go and they don't even know about it. And I think that's really what's underneath most trust on LinkedIn is being fair to everybody. You know, being honest, being authentic. They're going to find out, or maybe they won't in time, but what have you built on? And it won't scale. Or if it does scale, it scales the wrong direction. So, you know, you must have seen quite a few connection requests and conversations with those connections. What have you learned since you started in 19 from where you are?
Sure. So again, it's more about engaging with the content of others than my own posts. Meaning, you know, and I've been doing this now for a number of years, but I spend the first part of the morning, usually between, depends on how early one of my dogs wakes me up, but anywhere between 4:30 and 5, I wake up. But I spend the first hour engaging with the content of others, maybe 45 minutes, but engaging with the content of the people that I've maybe rang that bell. One of the best inventions, whatever you want to call it, introductions to LinkedIn ever was when that bell arrived, because I was before I was keeping Excel spreadsheet of people and I went to their post, their activity every day. But for the people that really matter to me, I go to my notifications. I engage with their most recent post, try to give a thoughtful comment. And these are just people that I've developed relationships over time. And you can on LinkedIn. If I've had a Zoom call with somebody once, and maybe just because we're both busy and we never do again, it's still that there's a bond. There truly is. So please make sure to also take the time to have some conversations. I mean, off of LinkedIn via Zoom however, because that's when the magic happens. Because I think you touched on this in the beginning, is now I've created this Rolodex, and some of our audience might not know what that is, but anyway, but so I've really created this list of, if somebody says, Dave, do you know anybody that does this? Maybe not off the top of my head, but I start, looking up some stuff. But that's what you create, because I might be able to help somebody, not by them hiring me, but providing them with somebody else that I know is an expert in their field. And because of the 930 million people are on LinkedIn, only a very, very small fractions of percentage of people are even active or post. You are right. If you show up, by default, you're probably going to get some traction. Although I do hear people say, I post every day, LinkedIn doesn't work. Well, there's something that you're not doing right, because, I've gained a lot of traction and a lot of, attention on LinkedIn by posting and engaging with the content of others. I really want to reiterate that. If you just post and don't give, then you might not get a lot over time. So,
well, to me, everything's a two-step. You take a step, I take a step, I take a step, you take a step, but nobody takes two steps. So if I comment and no one recognizes my comments, I'm going to go somewhere else and comment, right? And it goes the other way. So what's good for you, like I say, is good for people like you.
yes.
And you want to be better than just enough, right? Why not leave a bigger tip every time you go to somebody's establishment?
Yes.
And in most cases, it's the recognition that people are looking for. So when you tag people, when you share their posts, you really stand out, because shares are just a couple a day. And when you have long comments, like some of these comments, people actually read them and learn from them.
Yes.
So not everybody's like beholden to somebody that, you have to feel honored they're looking at your stuff. Your stuff is as valuable or more depending on what you put in it,
Yes.
to everybody else. And, if you're going to show up, why not show up with some thought, with some support? Because everybody wants to know what's in it for them. And that's just the way it is. And that's the way it'll always be. And, you're only as good as what you just last said, which could either encourage a positive outcome in the future. We've got Natalie that says, well, here's a sheaf. He says, in a sales role, I appreciate, don't adapt to the energy, influence the energy in the room. Yeah, you're so true, because, they say it's not your words, it's your music that count. Right? You go in a room and you're jumping up and down and happy and shaking hands and patting people on the back and making things happen. Everybody starts paying attention and wondering what's going on. So some things, like they say, you got to break some eggs to get an omelet. Sometimes you got to break through and be who you are. And that's the most fascinating part of people, is their uniqueness. Like Dave said, everybody's got a talent, a passion, something. No matter how mundane you might think it is, with 970 million people, even 1% gets you 9 million.
Yes.
How many people can you put in your living room? So, and she then comes back with, it empowers openness. And I think that's the key. Nothing comes in unless something opens up to let it in. And usually got to let something out to make room to let something in. And it's a process of evolution. I think also, in context for what Dave's saying, the first year and a half on LinkedIn is the slowest, is the hardest. Once you can pick up that head of steam, and you start moving with direction and with best practices, and you start realizing, the beauty of commenting and having comments to you is it polishes you by the feedback.
Yes.
You're not living in a vacuum. You don't have tunnel vision. After a while, if enough people notice something, maybe there's something to it. But I think to Dave's point, it's a matter of having that conversation then. It's too cryptic trying to communicate in text and understanding what it is when it's like, hey, if you're for real, let's have a call. Linda says, in the roles of my life, adapting and changing mindset to empower. You know, you're so right, Linda, because for things to change, you got to change,
Yes.
you know, and you got to be ahead of the change or be at least ready for it. So, how have you started to adapt to all these new AI tools and everything else? What's your thoughts on that?
Sure, I'll go back a long time ago, and I want to go back to Sharif's where it influenced the energy in the room. I remember walking into a store that had terrible sales. It was the beginning of a new month, and the previous month was horrible. And I walked into that store, and I thought that the employees were going to start, the manager and the assistants and some of the employees really thought I was coming in there to lay down the law. You guys and girls were terrible. We got to do something. We're changing stuff up, or we're going to change people. Really think. But I was walking in, I was smiling. I knew a couple of them liked some little some treats and bananas, so I brought some stuff in. You would have thought that they had done really well because my attitude, and they're looking at me funny. But you know, I learned a long time ago, it's not about yesterday and it's not about tomorrow. It's really, you know, it's about today. And I learned that change is going to happen. Okay. Now decades ago, I used to be that person. Oh my God, change, right? You know, woe is me, and hyper focus on that change. When I let loose, and I don't even remember how I did, but I know I did. But when I let loose that there's always going to be change, right? And so I am never like afraid of it. I know it's going to come. I know I can adapt by not giving it any power. Meaning if that changes, you know, maybe I don't like it, right? You know, or our corporate office brings down this change. I might not like it, and I'm not going to like it for a minute, but then I'm thinking, how am I going to support that change? What kind of change can I, you know, embrace? Because I got to, you know, I got to work that down to hundreds of people, right? And I have to be the change leader. So, you know, again, for me, you have to figure out that change is going to happen, and you just have to embrace it. And if you give it no fuel, you'll be able to move on from that change. Now, you talked about technology. Now, we should be mindful of new change. That's why I like looking at random posts of things that, like, I don't know a lot about AI or maybe Bitcoin, and it's not that I'm going to buy any, but I want to have that, at least that some of that knowledge, to be able to understand conversations, what's going on in the room when you know, people are bringing up that. But again, when we give change no power, change is not that big of a deal anymore. We know it's going to happen. I mean, LinkedIn changed some stuff a while ago. They decided to remove all fake accounts, or try to remove fake accounts and dormant accounts. Well, I lost 20,000 followers in one day. Now, I must admit that one day I was a little, you know, I was like, is it going to stop? So again, change, you know, but the next day, hey, my feed is going to be better, right? I'm not going to have all this, you know, fake accounts, you know, commenting, engaging. So you can't, I'm just going to say this yet again, you can't give change no control, because when it does, it will control you.
Yeah, so true. And, you know, change is happening so fast, there's no reason to get out in front of it. You know, let it show up as it is. And, you know, also know it's going to evolve in itself too. You know, I remember when I first got into e-commerce, everything was dial-up. You used to have those little rotating clocks, and you just sit there like for 40 seconds, and that was still better than going shopping in your car. So, you know, it's only good until it's compared to something better or worse.
Sure.
That makes it really what it is. And I just saw change as something that, if you're going to survive and prosper, you need reinvention. And for reinvention, you need to integrate some change that's going to make you a competitive advantage over others. LinkedIn is definitely a competitive advantage. LinkedIn Live gets 24 times the comments as organic video on LinkedIn, which gets 5 times what text post does. That's 120 times in an hour. And the beauty of it is leveraging one against groups or with groups,
Mhm.
and getting away from the one-on-one, especially the physical one-on-one. And that makes it so time and cost efficient. And I think on LinkedIn or anything you do as far as live streaming, it is cost and time efficiency for all parties involved. And, that's where the ripple comes in, because this is easy to watch. And someone watching David today is going to know him so much better than someone who's just saw his post for the last year.
Sure.
Right. And I think that's how you want to be seen and heard, because it's a mob out there with the nod, nod, wink, wink stuff going on. And the only way to get away is to elevate away, not to get louder, angrier, more controversial, but to steal off to an island in the sun with 30, 40 people like yourself and have a safe, honest conversation. And to numbers, quantity, quality, I would rather have 40 people right now in this room who I can see every day, work with, and talk to every day, than have 35,000 that they're still a stranger. Just because you connected
Oh,
one
yes.
time, you never talked to them, never did anything with them, you think you have any more relationship than if you wouldn't have connected with
Yeah.
them. So I think there's something to that. Ashief says, everyone always likes to join the party, make change fun. So true. I think, David, you've got to have a sense of humor to persevere, and also to be the smiley guy in the room when when you're feeling just like the people that are in front of you. But what confidence is it when you walk into the general's tent and he's crying in his hands? You don't want to be like that. So what's your techniques to staying positive and being the better person?
Sure. I just focus on what I can do today. It's always about today. You should always look at yesterday and what can you take from it? You can't dwell on it. And if you focus on tomorrow, guess what? Then you do nothing today. So today is the day that matters the most. You can still plan for tomorrow, still look back on yesterday. But so what are you going to start today? Like New Year's resolutions okay. So people will say, okay, let's say today's Friday. On Monday, I'm going to start that diet. On Monday, I'm going to write my business plan to start my business. Well, then you get busy and then nothing happens, right? So the doers in life, that's what I consider myself, and it does. I do take on too many things at times, and I know that about myself. But the people that start things today, people say, well, I can't start a business today. Well, could you write down your thoughts today? And then tomorrow, expand and do something else on those and keep expanding. So the people that focus on what they can do today without worrying about tomorrow, worrying about yesterday too much, are the people that always get things done in life, in work, family, doesn't matter. You gotta absolutely focus on what you can control, and that is what you're doing today.
Well, and I think without doing something, your influence really gets marginalized and minimized. And, whether you look at it a day or a week, there is no outcomes. Like I say, there's only continuums,
Mhm.
so nothing changes whatever you decide on Friday to do or not do, because Saturday's going to be there soon enough with its own set of challenges. And, why bring legacy? I used to do turnarounds and restructurings, and there is so much sacred cows and things we used to do and we always do, or pet projects. And it's like, no, why not? My motto or my saying was, if you wouldn't buy it, you should sell it. If you wouldn't hire that person, you should eliminate that position, because it was all about what's in, what's coming out. And you have to judge your activities yourself. It's not set and forget. Where do you want to reinvest? Wherever the return is the greatest, whether that's satisfaction or financial. And I think that's another key to influence. People want to go with people who are leading, people who are inspiring. It's not always a leader that makes the most or actually enjoys the most, but has the responsibility and accountability to the group to get them through. It's like, a guide instead of a coach, someone who's been there before and can get there again. But before we get too far, let's go to Rashida. Thank you for being here today. Greetings from Antwerp. So happy to have you again. Danny's here. Danny is just a great gentleman out there in England. Post and Ghost permeates LinkedIn. Aharon is the video sometime. Okay, it's always a technical issue. Omar's here. Thanks for being here, Omar. I was just thinking about you.
Yeah, he's watching us from YouTube.
Oh yeah, we're on YouTube too. So yeah, lovely morning. What a beautiful talk. Power hour time. Linda comes back with, I am glad LinkedIn worked on getting rid of fake. Cause had been fooled by some and stepped away from platform. Didn't want interaction with, but came to find on and started enjoying community chat and finding really people making words shared. Right. Well, so nice of you, because, that allows us or motivates us to keep this going. Right. The audience really gives us reason for our ability to continue. It's not always easy staying positive and keeping a smile on your face. My co-workers find it suspicious, and they ask me if I have an agenda. I mean, why? Just because I try to bring positivity to the team. So that's ignited something in you, David.
I'm so glad I read that before you put it up there, and I'm so glad you shared that. You really had me at my coworkers find it suspicious, and some of them ask if you have an agenda. Yes, you do have an agenda, and it's to be positive. So, what I would suggest is you go find one of those coworkers that might be a little suspicious, right? One of those coworkers. What can you do to help them learn how to smile and like work? Well, because then guess what? Then you have a partner. And then you get another one. And then slowly you'll outweigh the people that aren't smiling and don't, and yes, you do have an agenda. And it's, again, to make people, we want to be in environments. The reason that I'm positive still to this day is because, again, for decades, I was managing large teams and I needed to stay, positive. And I learned by doing that, I could get a lot more done and deliver more messages. Even the bad ones, I tried to keep a smile on my face. So keep doing what you're doing and go find one person that you can help change, because then eventually the others will have to change because you're going to outnumber them. And you know what? You might have a better working environment. You might get better results, and your boss might identify you as a change maker. So go make that change. So you keep having that agenda.
Yeah, that's very, very valuable. And you attract who you are and how you are. And they say people are like elevator buttons. Some take you up, some take you down, right? And who do you want to be with? Even during the hardest times, having a sense of humor, having perspective, understanding not everything is absolute or all or nothing, and it is what it is. It's whatever you want to add to it for as long as you want to do it, that makes it still have life and still create, an influence on you that may not be positive, So I think moving forward is always the answer, being positive. And, when it's all about them, you can put a smile on your face. When you start to make it more about you, it becomes less about them, and your projection is that. I think, to answer the question a little bit in another way, is it's an opportunity to build trust, right? When everybody's suspicious around you and you have access to them and some influence on them, build trust exercises. Invest in the little time you put with each other, right? And say, hey, you got 10 minutes? I just want to share something. Or where trust comes from is where you're honest and say, I've noticed this. I don't understand it. Could you help me with this? Or, what's going on. I mean, you got to ask the question, or what happens is you always have that in the air, and everybody knows it, but no one wants to address it.
Yes.
And that's nerve wracking. So Sheaf comes back with David, living in the power of now is indeed powerful. That's really and truly what we can control. And you want to just do what you can control and not bother with the stuff you can't. I mean, you got to pick your fights in a way.
Yeah.
I'm positive to jump in your live, and David shares insightful tips. Great. Maria says, it's interesting how many folks think there is agenda when someone is positive, but when you're a grump, oh my God, a crowd forms. Well, and that's why there's such a distinction between who you hang with, and what you're exposing yourself to and to them. What's your thoughts, David?
Oh, that's easy. When people are grumpy or negative, I leave. I don't even excuse myself. I leave. Why? I choose not to be in environments. I can remember back in the day, maybe being at a peer meeting where, a couple days talking about results or upcoming events or whatnot. Group of, district managers coming together, and, some of them being, maybe the boss is, taking a call or whatever, not leading the group, and somebody starts bitching and moaning about this, and then they all do. I just up and leave, or pretend to take a call or whatever. Just excuse myself, because yes, we all want to do. Yeah, Don, you're right. He's terrible. She's this and she's that. And then we all come in, and because it is a sense of team, but the wrong type of team, right? So again, we have to create environments where that's not okay. And what I grew to do when I was meeting with my peers, and something like that happened, I would eventually say, hey, time out. Let's get back to either talking about what's constructive, because this is just, we're going to go down a rabbit hole and we're not going to get anything, accomplished, right? But when you're that one person, it takes a lot of courage to stand up and say something, because everybody else is being grumpy. But it takes courage, but you need to keep showing that, because over time, maybe you influence one person. Again, just almost like that other comment. So it is a shame, but can you imagine when crowds would form, if we were more positive all the time? I think great things would happen. So good job on that comment and that identifying that, because you are true, Maria. It's just a shame that does happen.
Yeah, but that's an opportunity again for the people who do the opposite to shine. A lot of times the best person doesn't always stay in an organization.
Oh, yes.
Right? A lot of times it's the best person for the organization that stays, not the sales leader who thinks they're so valuable and they bring in so much income, because there is something to comfort. And, when you know better, when you've been around better and you've experienced better, the opposite. And when people disrespect you, like I said, I knew a gentleman who won the Congressional Medal of Honor, and he had an 11th grade education. And he said to me, he says, I treat everybody as if they're on the penthouse with me. And as soon as they disrespect me, they go to the basement and they got to work their way back up. And it's the same thing as, what are you, not, again, we're using words and how they can apply, but what do you mean by that is the better question, right? Someone said something and you say, I don't understand, what was that meant to do? How was I meant to, what were you thinking I would think after you said that or did that? Because it is what it is. And you might as well get it out front, because sometimes you make a mistake too. And it could happen again. And you could say, oh, now that I know you had a flat tire, you're half hour late,
Sure.
Makes perfect sense. So, I think because we're dealing with people, it is conditional. It is relative, and how do you know how people are feeling until you get an opportunity to spend some time with them? And I think discipline is so important, when it comes to influence. And I liked what David said earlier that I wanted to come back to is I think one of the ultimate achievements on LinkedIn is being a master connector, right? Is, it's like that game where you got to match cards up and you flip them over and
Sure.
eventually you match them up. Is over time you say, hey, that's a great coach. That's a great web designer. And you're right. As soon as it comes up, it's like, hey, I know this person. I'd recommend that person to talk to, unless you've had some work done with them.
Yes.
And that really is the ultimate compliment when someone says, I just talked to Jack. He said, if I want to know something about LinkedIn Live, you're the person, right? All of a sudden, Jack just rose so many levels above,
Yes.
right? Because he put himself out there. And I think that's the key to influence. Are you putting yourself out there, or are you just doing the bare minimum to match up or stay in the game versus transcend all that stuff? If you're only going to do it once, why not give it all you got just to show what all you got takes for you to do? So, I think that this was so thought-provoking, today's conversation with so many great people. Ambambola's here from Nigeria, here all the time. Happy New Week, not a problem. Ashif comes back with always walk backwards against the wind and you'll always fall forward. That's a good way of looking at things. Linda comes back with, this is a time where trust is seeing wavy lines and having to be alert of actions and words to make choice of what you will allow in your life to be a part of. So true. And, there is safety in numbers. There's safety in being in a group that kind of looks out for each other. Connector, she makes me see the value, but I struggle with finding times to engage. Well, someone used to always say, I don't have enough time. And I would always say, how much time don't you have? It's really, what are you doing with your time?
Yes.
And what is it doing for you? One thing about LinkedIn, they give you same day results.
Yes.
You do something, you see something, you like it, do it again. You don't like it, change it. And I think, David makes a wonderful point. A lot of people say, I got nothing to post today, can't think of something. Well, what excited you about someone else's post?
Sure.
And
Yes.
that's your post today. So you can consistently post every day. Your network will see what you're doing. And, you become an advocate for them, then an advocate for yourself to them.
Yes.
If I can find great content, like finding David to come on the show and share David's wealth of experience and influence along with the audiences. And now, this is 40 people with knowledge share across to each other, through each other, with each other. And, that, I think, gives you influence when you feel empowered, when you feel you actually can apply what you think or do, share it, and then people come back and thank you. And I get stories probably once a week because of this show, because of what someone said. It allowed me to change, or I held in there for another day. It's that, just give yourself another day and you'll never lose, because you can't beat anybody who won't quit. You'll go after easier game, or just by default, people say it's not worth chasing them, let them go. And I think that's fun, knowing there is a better day. If you always believe the check's in the mail, it's just a matter of being a little patient.
Yes.
And what comes around goes around, and be the factor and the initiator of all these wonderful things. So almost have a few minutes to go, David. Any other thoughts or comments regarding?
Sure. I'll take that last, the comment that says that, the struggle to find the time. Well, in my previous career, I worked 55, 60 hours a week. So what did I do? I was starting to get active on LinkedIn in early 2019. So what did I do? I took 30 minutes in the morning. I just woke up 30 minutes early and before I went to work. And then maybe at lunchtime, I spent a couple of minutes checking some things. And then at night, and I was more active on the weekends. And I found that your posts can do good on the weekends too. You just do what you do. But if you carve out just a little bit, just a little, eventually that could lead to other things. But again, you're still putting in the work. And if you're devoting a good 30 minutes, I would think good things can happen, because and then finally my day job got in the way, and I quit my day job to do this, to do this full time, over time, of course, but less than a year. But it really depends on where you want to go and what you're willing and able just to do today, just that little bit. And then, like you said, you just repeat that, repeat that tomorrow and keep going, and you never know.
Yeah, well, that's the key is no one knows what they don't know, but there's a lot to find out by testing. And I did so well because of my initial relationship with Walmart.com. I was one of the first 6 players to get on their marketplace. And when you're on something that's so big, like LinkedIn, 900 some million, backed by Microsoft, and it's free to broadcast there and to there. And the question is, they never limit how much you can do here. They never say, well, at 15 posts, you're done, right? You could do all you want. You could get on LinkedIn Live at 9, take a break for lunch, come back here till 5, and keep broadcasting. Someone will see you broadcasting that often, that long, and that'll create your persona, not what you're used to do. And I think that's the other thing is when you transcend where you thought you could be, you can keep going.
Oh, yes.
Right? You can transcend all that. Dennis says caring and sharing does make a better day. And I think, if you leave the log pile bigger and you found it every day, at night you can say, hey, I gave, I supported. And, maybe that gets you another day. But here is an interesting question. Of all the folks that sent an invite to connect from this daily conversation, there is never any communication after the invite. There must be follow-up if you're sending an invite. And that tells you something.
Yes.
Right? How are you connecting? What is your message? Some people just hit the connect button. I think if people really wanted to connect with someone, they would give a reason. We're in the same industry, saw you on Don's show, we're into the same stuff, whatever. Aaron says, thanks, have a nice day. YouTube worked better for this stream. Great. And that's the beauty of it is connecting more streams. A positive mind, Ashif says, finds opportunity in everything. A negative mind finds fault in everything.
Ooh, that's solid.
Yeah, that sure is. And I think that's the key is, how do you wake up one day feeling like $1 million? The next day you can't get out of bed. You say to yourself, how fast could the world change? Right? And it's not about that. And I think David made a good point earlier is how you get ready for your day. How do you wake up? How do you condition yourself to get happy? You're responsible for that happiness first, right? You can't wait for a lottery winner or something to make your day. Linda comes back with, I went unable to see a positive in each day and having seen it happen, it just keeps shining and showing for them to see an example. Yeah, if it's not this, it's that. Why not enjoy yourself whenever you can, however you can? Make time for yourself, celebrate little victories, give yourself a pat on the back when others won't or should and don't,
100%.
right? And I think that's so important. So, with that said, now that we're at the end of the show almost, what's your thoughts on influence and what the show has done for you today, David?
Sure. Well, it's the comments were very engaging today, and what it's taught me is that we have some people that should be posting probably more. I'm going to go take a look at their content, but they're putting some thoughtful comments here, and you know what? Talk about some of the things that you're sharing today, right? I'm talking about the people that are commenting. For all of those valuable nuggets of information, share your experiences, what you're struggling with, and go be the influencers of change. I'll tell you the real reason I wake up happy every day is because, again, I know we touched on this. I don't dwell on yesterday and I don't worry about tomorrow. When you're able to do that, and maybe you might need some coaching, not from me, but from somebody else if you're not in that place. But when you get rid of those, when you get rid of yesterday and stop worrying about tomorrow, you'll sleep better and you'll wake up smiling. That's my little last bit of advice.
And I believe in that advice. So I'd follow it. I do follow it. And it's great to see someone else who is aligned that way, because at the end of the day, it's what works,
Yes.
right? And what works is how you feel during the day and at the end of the day. And if you feel proud and happy, and more importantly, grateful. I think an attitude of gratitude goes so far to put everything in context because, you know, things come and go. Money's here and it disappears as easily as it came. But it's your belief, it's your confidence, it's your family, it's your friends that are your true influence and safety. And I think build those relationships, build that goodwill. Every time you do something good, you're making a deposit in that person to that person. And just like making money, if you keep making money, you don't want to withdraw the money you already have in certain places. You just want to let it grow and let it support whatever it is. And when you're into something bigger than yourself, it gets easier on yourself, right? When your cause is to help so many and you're doing it, then you find real value in your life. They say money makes good people better and bad people worse, and most people think money's the answer, have never had any, and if they had some, they'd still be the same person now with a different set of issues. So
Yeah.
anyways, ending on a positive note, which we're both smiling. Thank you so much, audience. Come back tomorrow and we'll do it again. And we couldn't have done it without you. So thank you again. Have a lovely day and bye for now.